to the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. All things hockey, all the time. And now, here are your hosts, two washed-up beer leaguers who have no idea what they're talking about, Zach Martin and Alex Nuttall.
What's going on, everybody? We're back for another installment of Cannons and Tomahawks podcast. We are going to be talking about the West Division. As always, I'm Alex. Got my buddy Zach. Zach, what is up, my dude?
Oh, you know, man. Same thing as we do every time we come here. Talk about the greatest game in the world, and that is hockey, and drink some beers while doing it. How are you doing tonight, man?
Glorious. I already finished my beer, so I'm upset, and I don't feel like getting up to go get another one, so I have a Monster. It's about as good as I'm going to get right now.
So basically, you're doing you're basically doing a Four Loko with extra steps.
Yeah, dude, it's an up or downer night. It's fine. I don't work tomorrow, so it's fine. No big deal.
Yeah, there you go. Can't go wrong with that. Try to sleep in as much as you can, but let's be honest, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I have kids. Sleep in is like 7 a.m. for me, so no big deal. So today, to talk about the West Division for the playoffs, we have Seth from the Locked On Wild podcast from the Locked On Podcast Network. Seth, how are you?
Gentlemen, I am doing great. It is finally playoff hockey time, and so just kind of enjoying the calm before the storm, unless, of course, you are part of the North Division, in which we're still playing regular season hockey. So kind of a weird time, but I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of matchups I'm really looking forward to. Minnesota is my team that I want to win the cup. So are they going to? Probably not. But I still want them to. I don't care. It's one of those things. Not much else to say. I want them to win the cup. That's about it.
Well, if I've learned anything in the 30 plus years I've been a fan of Minnesota sports, it's that you can have the best season of all time, and it's likely that something is going to happen to rip your heart right out of your chest, whether it be a missed 27-yard field goal, whether it be getting shut out by the lower seed in a playoff series with your former head coach leading that team. We're not going to talk about that, though. But I've seen plenty of Minnesota sports heartbreak, and so every time we get a team like the Wild this year, where they have a really good season and they just have kind of that vibe, that special one that championship teams seem to have. Something happens to where you're like, wow, that went poorly very quickly. So I'm ready to have my heart broken again. For sure.
So before we start talking about inevitable heartbreak, Seth, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you guys' podcast over at Locked On?
Yeah, so it's a daily look at the Minnesota Wild, and I've tried to, since I took over at the beginning of April, I've tried to take a different kind of approach to the show. We've done recaps of games in a couple of different ways, analytics, trying to keep up to date on news with the team, and mostly it's just given me the opportunity to just sit and talk for 25, 30 minutes and tell people what I think about this Minnesota Wild squad, which has had a great season. So it's been a lot of fun. The episodes are pretty rapid fire. We do some post-game content right after games are done, and just mainly try to keep everybody locked in to what is going on with the Minnesota Wild.
Awesome. Yeah, if you guys don't know about them, you need to go follow them on Twitter at Locked On Wild. Some solid guys over there, solid content, and it's Wild.
Yeah, we actually just got followed by the Locked On Golden Gophers account too, so we got more Minnesota guys following us. So,
and I will say, with the Twitter account, I have been trying to do more with that. Going to really try to blow the doors off in the playoffs. You know how it gets though. You're watching a game and you get super locked into it to the point where you put your phone down and all of a sudden you look up and you haven't tweeted anything like through the entirety of the first period. Ooh, whoops. So we're gonna try to do some fun things, mostly just chirp at Vegas. So it should be a good time.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. You can't go wrong with playoff chirps.
No, not at all.
Not one bit. So we'll go ahead and start about the series that nobody cares about, that we all know which team is going to win this. You have the Colorado Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues. Seth, are the Avalanche going to win in 4 games or 5?
Well, this is interesting for me because the Avalanche come into this series and they've been a little dinged up. They have tried to kind of get Nathan MacKinnon healthy over the last couple of games of the season. It would be nice to be that deep that you can not play MacKinnon and you can still just crush teams, but that's kind of how the disparity goes in the West Division these days. St. Louis comes into this, and I don't know if it's just because I was so sick of seeing them over the last 2 weeks of the season. The Wild played them, I think, 7 times. They are just such a physical, pesky team that I think Colorado does win the series, but it's one of those where you go in the boxing ring and you're battling your opponent, expected to win, but you end up taking one right to the face and you get your eye completely closes up, or you try to kick him and your leg snaps. So yes, you win the fight, but Colorado is probably going to come out of this a little bit injured and weary in this series. So it's best for them to try to close it out as quickly as possible, because St. Louis just sleptwalked through the first 2 months of the season, and all of a sudden they are just playing. Maybe it's just because they played the Wild so many times down the stretch, but they're playing their best hockey at the right time. So for Colorado, it's like, we got to try to get this series closed so that we don't have to worry about this going to 6 or 7. I'll just say, for argument's sake, I'll say that Colorado wins it in 5, but it's not going to be pleasant for them.
No. Yeah, I could see it being a pretty uncharacteristically kind of messed up series for the Avalanche. Like you were saying, with some of the injuries they've had lately, they could be struggling a little bit. I still see him coming out on top regardless. St. Louis hasn't been great. Vladimir Tarasenko has been mediocre since he came back. Torrey Krug has not been doing much. Ryan O'Reilly, the same thing. I mean, David Perron, the same thing. Like, none of the guys have been.
Let's not forget about Jordan Binnington and his multiple temper tantrums after getting his, stuff rocked.
Bennington is overrated and overpaid. I will die on this hill
for half a good season. For a half,
they don't even need him. They've got Ville Husso, who is apparently the second coming of Patrick Waugh, so they'd be fine to go with him.
Yeah,
I'm obviously.
Yeah, I could see them having a pretty good future in net. Right now, not so much. I still see Colorado coming out on top. Zach, who do you think is going to take that series?
Colorado in 4.
Ooh,
I cannot. I'm Chicago. You know my feelings. I don't even have to explain it. But if you want me to, St. Louis and
it's
all their fans
can
go jump off a bridge. I hate this franchise. I hate this team. 4, end of story. I get the heck out of the playoffs. You don't even deserve to be there because you did absolutely nothing all season. Now you decided to play hockey. Oh, shocker. So, no. Colorado in 4, St. Louis get out of the playoffs, go back to being St. Louis pre you winning a Stanley Cup. No one cares about you. You had your
Rams. Oh, wait.
Whoops.
Ooh.
Hello, 2015. How are you?
I like that take, though, because St. Louis has vaulted up my list in terms of teams that I absolutely despise. The team that is on the top of my list because of their just incessant chirping about Jason Robertson winning the Calder trophy is Dallas. And I'm not here for that in any way. So Dallas, St. Louis. So yeah, I would love to see St. Louis get swept and humiliated in this series, but yeah. I think they get 1. I'll say they get 1 just because I'm being nice.
So I see you're more nicer than I am, because if I was allowed, if this was ever possible, I said Colorado in 3 and just be like, yeah, just don't even show up.
A forfeit.
Forfeit game 4. Just get your butts back on the butt, or actually, you already be in St. Louis because you're the lower seats. So you know what? Just stay at home. We'll start early. We'll start prepping for round 2 because you guys have no chance. So you know what? I would love to say Colorado in 3, but we have to say 4. So I'm going Colorado 4. You're nicer than I am, but no.
So
Get the Blues out.
While we're on this hill, Seth, before we start moving, okay, well, let's just make it easy. Avalanche in 5. All right, that's my picks. While we're on this hill, what kind of an absolute mutiny will there be if Kaprizov does not win the Calder this year?
I will rally the entire state of Minnesota to head to NHL headquarters and demand that this wrong be righted. It will be nothing short of an outrage, and I have spent weeks coaching people up to the fact that it is a foregone conclusion that Kaprizov wins the Calder because of the fact that I saw the Dallas Stars accounts tweeting a goal that Robertson had to win a game for them recently in overtime. And I kid you not, the puck slid through the crease and Robertson barely touched it and it went in. And he was credited with the goal. And it's like, okay, sweet. Awesome. What a great highlight for you.
Yeah.
And we've got Kirill Kaprizov, who is literally skating laps around people and is getting hat tricks. He's getting game-winning or game-tying goals. He did it like 3 games in a row.
Yeah, he's dangling guys out of like all their equipment, not just their jock straps, but they're all their equipment. And it's like, oh, there's his left like leg guard in the 3rd row of the whatever it's section 500 or like section 305 or something like that. Because it's like because I've been pushing for Lankinen for the first good majority of the season because he was playing really well. Mm-hmm. Then our defense kind of fell apart. Then I'm like, well, it's got to be Kaprizov at this point because the dude's pretty much leading in almost every rookie category at this point. Just give it to him.
Now, I mean, to be fair, Robertson came out of nowhere.
He did.
Yeah, nobody heard about him at all until about halfway through the season.
Yeah, I do have to give Robertson credit. He came out of nowhere. He shot out of a cannon, and yeah, he can make a case for it. Does he deserve to win it? No, but
he could absolutely make a case. He'll be the runner-up 100%.
Oh, he's gonna be the runner-up for sure. I'll give him the runner-up. But should he win it? No. But he can make a case for it. I'll give him that much.
Kaprizov has been such an exciting kid to watch this year.
Yeah.
Outside of Columbus, outside of the Canes or anything like that, he's been so exciting to watch, and you can tell this kid is. Look, you have a
Kaprizov jersey for crying out loud.
Well, besides that, they were showing statistics of rookies that have the highest. I think it was points per game. He is in amazing territory with some incredible old school players. It's nuts. This kid is going to have a huge future ahead of him.
And let's not forget though too. He can throw some punches and knock some dudes on their butts. White Cloud of Vegas, ring a bell? Pun intended for the fact that he gets cheap shot and it's like, all right, bet, and he just goes into the scrum and
game on.
Yeah, and just destroys White Cloud's face with his, and it's just like, all right, noted. Do not mess with Kaprizov because he will not be afraid to chuck some nucks and dump some pucks in the net. So, yeah.
The other thing that I'll add to this conversation is, Robertson. A lot of Dallas fans are saying, he's had a fun little season for a rookie, and meanwhile, here in Minnesota, Kirill Kaprizov has set the Wild franchise record for goals, assists, points, power play goals. Shattered all of those records in a 56 game season too. All of these other records were in a normal 82 game season, courtesy of Marian Gaborik and a couple of other players. Kaprizov did it in 56 games.
Did you imagine a full regular season with this kid? Oh my word.
That is what's so frustrating about this. This kid is blowing the doors off of these places with his skill. And a normal season would have been an extra, 26 games.
Yep.
That's insane. He could have easily gotten another 10 or 15 goals.
I think his pace at the time that he was done for the season, because he didn't play the final game, his pace was, I think, 41 goals, 36 assists. So in an 82 game season, you're talking about a rookie with 77 points.
It's insane.
Yeah. Obviously the best ever rookie season is going to be Teemu Selanne's, but you can almost make an argument if it was a normal 82 game season with Kaprizov. You can also give him, some would be like making a case that Kaprizov would probably have the second best ever rookie season for an NHLer ever. And I mean, Teemu Selanne is Teemu Selanne. Let's be real here. But I mean, Kaprizov is, for the fact that Minnesota's got this kid. Oh, let's not also forget they also have Kakinen in net, which is like, hello, here's your goalie of the future. Minnesota's in good hands in the net and on the goal sheet. Like,
to be talking more about the net, Kakinen's been good, but Cam Talbot's been great this year too. They
who's revived his career.
They by far have to have the best goalie tandem in the league this year.
It's it's been so fun too, because we were treated to, I think it was 30 starts from Devin Dubnyk last year, and if anybody has seen what he has done this year, not great. I mean, Alex Stalock went on a run down the stretch to even get the Wild into the qualifying round of the playoffs last year. Yeah. Without him like standing on his head for the last 2 weeks of the season, this team doesn't even make the playoffs. Like they do the play-in thing and they end up losing there, and they don't make the playoffs at all. So you go from like, in several categories, the dead last goalie combo in the entirety of the NHL. And all we wanted as Wild fans was them to go to like league average. Like if you could get to like 15th or 16th in the league in most of those goalie statistics, we feel like we'd be in pretty good shape. And they're in like the top 10 now. It's been just ridiculous. And yes, having that defensive core in front of them has helped. Brodin, Spurgeon, and those guys, but still, at the same time, Talbot is the one that is making a lot of these big saves, and I get a kick out of the people on Facebook, the Wild Facebook groups, who get upset in that game against Vegas that the Wild won 6-5. They're like, "Oh, Talbot gave up 5 goals. He shut Vegas down in the third period when it mattered." And
Facebook groups in general are just like cesspools of just negativity that you like. I'm mostly on Twitter, and Twitter can be its own animal in itself, but you can find some people that actually are more moderately, like, you can talk to people about sports and it's not as bad as Facebook groups. But yeah, like, I'm sorry, you beat the Golden Knights, like,
right.
Any team would be happy to shut them down for 5 goals and you still win a game. Yeah. I mean, your guys' defense is, like you said, your defense is really good, and you got guys who can score goals too. I mean, given if Minnesota was in the Central, like our normal Central division with, you guys, us, Colorado, St. Louis, like, you could be talking about not even as the 3 seed, because unfortunately you did Vegas in your guys' division, but a normal Central, you're talking as a possible 2 seed for the Minnesota Wild. You're not facing the Golden Knights in the first round of the playoffs. You're facing some whatever other team that however the playoff format goes down to. But yeah, you're a 3rd seed, but you're not a typical 3rd seed team, if that makes sense. It's just, unfortunately, you had the Golden Knights and Colorado in the same division, and I mean, you guys were still close to them too. It wasn't like you guys were so far behind. You're not the St. Louis Blues, who are like eons behind you guys in terms of skill and points wise. So to say Minnesota's a 3rd seed team, the seed doesn't really factor into how good the Wild actually are.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because it's like in the NFL, if you would have 2 teams in the division that would go 13-3, and then the 3rd place team in the division goes 12-4. It's like that 3rd place team is still great. It's just that you had 2 just buzzsaws in front of them.
Oh yeah, that's why, because I'm a Browns fan in the AFC North. The Browns they finished 11-5, because they're going to a 17-game season. I'll
never get used to that.
Yeah, because I just did a thing for the Belly Up Network, but and I had to do a season prediction. So I'm thinking of 17 games, but they went 11-5. It still finished 3rd in their division, and had to play on a wild card game. Like, that's exactly what you said. Like, you have 3 teams that all won 11, 12, 13 games in the NFL, and for the NHL, you just had 3 teams who were just really good. Unfortunately, how the playoff format is, Minnesota's playing the 2nd best team in their division.
Yep.
And they've beaten them a good majority of the season. So it's just Vegas beat up everyone else, and Minnesota just unfortunately just got drawn where they were. But they did beat Vegas a lot this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and the thing is, we had Rod Peterson on for an episode, and he was saying that, if you look at it statistically, Minnesota has been the team that's beaten the Knights more than anybody else in the entire time that they've been in existence since 2016, 2017,
something like that.
And in the last 4 seasons, Minnesota has destroyed them, and they have this year too. Everyone's saying, "Oh, the Golden Knights are going to dominate them." This is a series that's a little different.
So fast.
If they were playing St. Louis, yes,
for sure,
I could see that. But because of how Minnesota has been playing against the Golden Knights, that's going to be a very, very interesting series. 100% going to be an odd series to watch. I personally think Minnesota's going to pull it off. I could see it in like 7.
Yeah, and like the thing that I love about this series is that there have only been 2 games decided by 2 goals or more. That was a 5-1 win for Vegas, I think, in game 2 of this series way early in the season. And the Wilds turned around the next time they played and they beat them 2-0. So other than that, it's been 6-5, 5-4, 3-2, 2-1. It has been just an absolute slugfest between these 2 teams. And we've seen everything from Zach Parise staying on the ice to try to get Marcus Foligno a hat trick for some reason and leading to the game tying goal, which Vegas then won in overtime, to the Wild coming from 3 goals down in the third period to beat Vegas in regulation with a minute left to go, courtesy of Kirill Kaprizov, just going insane. It has been it's been one of the most exciting season series between 2 teams that I can remember for the longest time. And so it just makes sense that it would continue into the first round of the playoffs. And for once, we get the matchup we want instead of like, oh, no, you guys are going to go play Colorado. Sorry. We actually get to see the Golden Knights and see this season series continue for hopefully 7 games.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, this season's so weird because you have these teams, especially in the West, they're playing each other 8 times. Minnesota and the Knights have played each other 8 times. And if you have another 7 games, you got 15 very hard matchups throughout the season.
Yeah.
And that just puts a toll on these teams. So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens and what transpires out of that. But I don't see any blowouts by either team. I mean, maybe a 3-1 or anything, but I don't see any just dominating play. I see a lot of very close games, and ultimately I think Minnesota is going to come out on top in 7.
I love that. Yeah. In maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have said that if Vegas if any team in this series got blowouts, it would have been Vegas, because the Wild are playing a completely different style of hockey at that point. The grit and grind where it's like, get us 2 goals and hang on for dear life. This Wild team now has finally turned into an offensive team that can score at will. I've seen 5 or 6 times this year that I can remember that the Wild have scored 3 goals in the span of like a minute. Or in the case of going up against Vegas, the 2 goals within a minute of each other right at the end of the game to win it. They can score at will. They've got dynamic speed now. So like you said, I think that this series is way more even, and it's not going to surprise me at all if all of these games come down to 1 goal or overtime.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but who do you think is going to take that series between the Knights and Minnesota?
I got to go with my boys. I have loved the way they've attacked the Golden Knights this season, and it just carries over from the success they've had since Vegas came into the league. They match up better against the Golden Knights because they don't have what Colorado has in those just dominant lines that just exhaust you until the point that you break, and then they just take the game over. They don't have the physicality that the St. Louis Blues have, where they beat you to death lines 1 through 4 to the point that you have nothing left to give. They're a team that has a couple of really good lines. They've got a top line of good defenders, but they're definitely beatable by this Wild team that is spread a little more evenly 1 through 4. And so the way that the Wild attack this team is going to be the third and fourth lines have to step up. And when they're out on the ice, they have to win those battles. And guys like Joel Eriksson Ek, Marcus Foligno, and Jordan Greenway have to win that battle against that top Vegas line. They got to keep them quiet. And I think this team can do it.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely agree. So what players do you think
real quick. Minnesota in 6. I haven't given my prediction yet, but Minnesota in 6.
Love it.
What players do you think need to step up for Minnesota to take the series a little bit more? It may be somebody that hasn't been playing to their full potential that you think need to get on a new level, since it's the playoffs. You kind of have to now.
I've got a great one for you. I think Ryan Hartman, who hasn't necessarily been playing poorly, but if he's going to center that Kaprizov-Zuccarello line, he has to be with them every step of the way. He has to give those guys opportunities to score, and he needs to elevate his game to match theirs so that line becomes just a nightmare matchup for the Golden Knights. And I'll say, and it probably had a lot to do just with the matchups against the Blues down the stretch, but I would like to see Cam Talbot step up and really take control of this series. I think he certainly is capable of doing it, and maybe he'll get invigorated by not having to see those damn Blues again, at least for now. So I'd say Ryan Hartman for sure. I just want to see him play at another level with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. Cam Talbot is another one, and if he plays, Zach Parise too.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of what's been going on. I think I saw he was scratched for 3 games. Have you seen any indication as to what that might be? Is it just his play? Anything going on off the ice?
Well, from what I gather, it is strictly at this point a performance-based decision, and he's just kind of the odd man out at this point. Nick Bjugstad was beat up for a majority of the season, and he came back and was healthy and was productive. And when Parise was just, I think he had a stretch of 9 consecutive games, I think it was, without a single point. And he had multiple games in that time where he wasn't even shooting. And so at that point, Dean Evison is saying, what are you giving us with those minutes that you're playing? His minutes declined to the point where he played, I think he bottomed out at 4 minutes and 30 seconds the game before he got benched. And at that point, it's like, that's not even worth having on the ice.
No.
And so he just has been a healthy scratch since. And it seems like it's pointing to a resolution of some sort in the offseason, whether the Wild agree to a buyout or they try to find a potential trade partner, or maybe somehow they convince the Seattle Kraken to take him if he waives his no movement clause. But it certainly seems like Parise's time in Minnesota is numbered, and that we may have even seen the last of him in a Wild uniform in that final game of the season.
Yeah. And I mean, that's crazy to think, looking at his contract. I mean, he's 36 and he still has another 5 years at $7.5 million of a cap hit every single time.
Yeah, because it was his contract, and who else was it? It was like him and
Ryan Suter.
Yeah, at the exact same time. That was like around the Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane. Like, everyone's getting these super ridiculously long, huge number of contracts. Of course, you don't really see this very much. I mean, here and there with certain guys, but yeah, it was just crazy to see like how those 2 guys got those 2 big contracts, and you're kind of like, okay, we'll see how this goes, I guess. And it's just, yeah, it's basically, it's like, you really got to make a decision of how you want to handle this, because with all these young guys coming up, and where you guys are kind of trending, it's do or die time now of like, all right, we need to do something about these contracts if we want to take that next step.
Well, it's like the other thing that is a huge decision that's going to need to be made this offseason. You got to sign Kirill Kaprizov, Kevin Fiala, Joel Eriksson Ek to extensions. Those are not going to be cheap. No. So they're going to have to come up with some money somewhere, whether it be Zach Parise being being waived or traded, whether it be somebody like Matt Dumba being traded or sent to Seattle to try to free up that cap space. They got to find it somewhere. And so Parise could do this team a huge favor by doing something, going somewhere where he's actually going to play a little more than he has been. But that contract makes it so tough.
Yeah, it's not every day, first off, anymore. You don't see it anymore at all, but a 13-year contract is not common.
It's insane.
Especially at the age. He signed it for the 2012-2013 season. And Kaprizov is now 24. So he would have been, 15, 16 when that was signed?
Jeez.
And you have to think, for Minnesota, Kaprizov, 100% untouchable for anybody. Absolutely no questions asked. And 100%, they need to find money, especially with the static cap. You know, you don't have a salary cap going up anytime soon that we know of. And you need to pay him. Now, is he going to get an 8-year deal worth $10 million? No. I could see him getting a couple of years. He's 24. I could see a 2-year deal. So he still has restricted rights, maybe $3 to $5 million a year. And then after that, that's when he's going to get that big contract, probably $8-9 million if he continues his play. But yeah, man, they're going to have to come up with a good chunk of change somewhere. And yeah, absolutely. Matt Dumba, I could see him being traded, my opinion. This is just outside of Minnesota, but I could see him going somewhere. You have Ian Cole, who isn't huge, but at the same time, it's still a $3.5 million. So he's 32. He could leave somewhere, but yeah, it's one of those things. You guys got to prioritize who you want to pay and who you don't want to worry about. Because then you have Jared Spurgeon. It seems like he's signed through 2050 at this point.
Yeah, no kidding.
And same thing with Brodin. I mean, those two guys are going to be there a long time, but you got to figure out what's going on so you can pay Kaprizov, give him the money he deserves so he can continue these absolute tears.
Well, and I think we're seeing this shift from more of a defense-oriented team to an offense-oriented team under Bill Guerin, and I think we're seeing this team be more comfortable with the notion of doing that. They have Kalen Addison, who has been playing really well for Iowa, that is waiting to take one of those spots. And so it just makes all the sense in the world to unload some of that defensive depth. Let Kalen Addison come in, play for cheap to fill one of those spots. He played for the Wild a little bit when they were dealing with COVID, and he played well. So he's ready to step up and take that spot. And there just is not a whole lot of depth offensively for them to try to deal at this point, unless it's Parise. So Matt Dumba is pretty much circled in, I'll just say in pencil at this point, but all signs seem to point to him being the one that moves on.
Do you see that being via trade or the expansion draft with Seattle?
I'm thinking at this point I've narrowed in on the expansion draft because I think it just allows Bill Guerin to control what happens in that scenario. Now, it's a concern because of what happened with Alex Took, in that the Wild let him go in order to try to protect a couple of other players, including, ironically enough, Matt Dumba. So it seems like Bill Guerin is going to be aggressive here. And is going to say, look, you guys can take Matt Dumba. He's a great player, and he's signed to a moderately good deal. I think he's got 3 years left. So take him, leave everybody else, and I think Seattle's going to be happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So who do you, out of all the teams right now, who do you see hoisting the cup at the very end? Obviously, we know you want Minnesota to win, but who do you see coming out on top out of everybody? I mean, there's a lot of very powerful teams.
Yeah, there's a lot of firepower in all of the divisions. And I mean, a team that won it last year that it seems like is kind of starting to get the moxie back. The Tampa Bay Lightning. Do I think that they will win the Stanley Cup? Maybe not. But I think the Tampa Bay Lightning could end up getting to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. I am hoping with every breath in my body that the Wild end up making it and winning it. But honestly, Colorado is just such a tough team to handle. And so I think if they can make it out of the West, I think they'll be the team to win it.
Yeah. It's really going to depend on quite a bit. I mean, I don't know if you've seen recently, but Nikita Kucherov is slated to come back and be ready for game 1. Same with Steven Stamkos. Like, you get Kucherov and Stamkos back for game 1, that could be massive.
That team is lethal then.
That immediately gives them at least a game 1 already in that first series against Florida. So, yeah, I could easily see them coming out on top, or at minimum making the finals, like you said. I would love for Minnesota to make it, but I still actually wouldn't mind a Tampa Bay Colorado final and seeing Colorado win it. That could be a very fun series.
Yeah, that would be epic.
Yeah. Zach, who you want to ultimately come out? And the Blackhawks are out. They don't count.
Wow. Okay. You really had to go there. Thanks for the reminder.
No problem.
Jerk. Out of the West or just winning in general?
In general.
Carolina Hurricanes, Colorado Avalanche, Stanley Cup final. Canes are going to win it.
I would thoroughly enjoy that series also.
That would be, when you want to talk about skill and firepower, name me another series you're going to have that, and especially with Rod Brind'Amour as head coach. I'm still trying to find a stat to see if this is true enough that he could be the first ever captain turned head coach to lead the exact same team to winning a Stanley Cup. So I just have a feeling that the Carolina's been building. I think this might be the year that they're going to do it. And Rod is just going to cement himself in the Hall of Fame for being a captain and a head coach leading the same team to a cup final.
Well,
because that would be wild.
Carolina's, they were the best team at home in the NHL this year.
They almost won the President's. They almost won the President's Trophy for the first time ever. They almost did it.
Almost. The Avalanche ultimately squeaked it out.
Yes.
Barely squeaked it out once they beat LA.
But Carolina, though, I mean, they're going to be a tough team to tough. Yeah. They're going to be, yeah. Hey, I want to be mad if it's Carolina, Minnesota. That'd be another good one, in my opinion. Carolina, Minnesota. Why not?
The Niederreiter homecoming.
Yeah, that trade.
We don't talk about it. We don't even reference it by name here.
Do you guys call it the trade?
The trade that shall not be named.
Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, what are you talking about, Herschel Walker?" I'm like, "No, worse."
Yeah.
Nino Niederreiter for a bag of pucks, basically.
Man, this is Voldemort's step uncle. That's all that trade is.
Oof. You might as well trade it for the pig that they had for that one playoff series at that point.
Dude.
That might have been a better trade. And that's saying something.
You had to go there, didn't you?
Just so many bad trades and
just a little
wild
bit.
history.
Just a little bit.
I mean, Columbus got rid of Rick Nash for Brandon Dubinsky and like a coupon to a Papa John's. It seems like.
Hey, those coupons back then were worth something. Now,
I mean, hey, we traded Jukka Harju for Alex Nylander, or no, we traded Sod for we traded Panarin for Sod back, and then traded Sod for Zadorov. We also did trade Leonard for Subban.
Stupid idiots.
Oh, I'm not even done.
Trade.
Oh, we traded Teravainen for
a brisk high five.
I wouldn't say a breast, more like a limp high five. Just like, yeah. Okay.
I was led to believe the Wild were a piece away from being a serious contender a few years ago, and then we traded for Martin Hansel.
Yeah.
Wow.
That happened.
That tells you how bad it was. I forgot about that trade.
I wish I could, but that one's never going to leave.
Yeah.
That definitely happened. I'll tell you what.
That's you want to talk about trades you don't really want to remember. That's an oofdas.
That's definitely up there. Well, I think that's about going to wrap it up for our West preview. We had Seth from the Locked on Wild podcast. Seth, we really appreciate you coming out, hanging out with us, talking why the Minnesota Wild are going to win the Stanley Cup and why the West is such a just horse of a division.
Besides St. Louis.
Yeah. They're it's that meme of King Ghidorah with the two heads that are like,
oh yeah,
amazingly strong looking, and the third head is like,
yeah, that doofy looking one. Yeah, that's St. Louis.
That's St. Louis.
Yeah, I can't wait for them to be swept out of the playoffs, and we can just get rid of all the Blues fans that have been fans for life to be like, okay, go back into the mediocrity. We're good without you.
Can't name one player yet. They've been St. Louis Blues fans for life. Just like they're still St. Louis Rams fan. Oh, wait, I did it again.
Oh, sorry, you silly guy.
Twice.
Hey,
they've had a team twice.
I'm not making friends over there, but I don't care.
Hey, well, they do have the Nighthawks of the. Oh wait, no, the XFL doesn't exist anymore either. So,
yeah,
they do. I mean, they do have the Cardinals, but I mean,
woohoo! Got to give them something.
Yeah, I mean, at least they know that the only reason why they exist is because the Blackhawks gave them an arena. So, I mean, we do own them technically. So, it's all right.
Just being generous.
Yeah, just being nice. They know who the big brother is. So,
God. Whatever. Well, on that note, Seth, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast on the land of the tweet world?
Yes, you can follow the show at Locked on Wilds. You can also follow me, as it says on the screen, at Seth Topes, Toups. Follow Locked on Wild wherever you listen to podcasts, and I mean that, wherever you listen to podcasts. And can't wait for some more postseason content coming this weekend. Good work, fellas. Thank you for having me on, and I am happy to do it again anytime.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Definitely sometime in the off season for sure. When we get some, we ramp up to the actual season. Hopefully, we have a normal Central Division again, so we can face you guys again. And have a little fun between Minnesota and Chicago, because those are always interesting games.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, big thank you for jumping on tonight with us to talk the West, which is weird to say because Minnesota is nowhere near the West. But
I'm not gonna be tired of seeing the 9:30 starts leave.
Oh,
I will not miss that one bit.
Yeah, L.A., Anaheim, San Jose.
Yeah,
you're like
enjoy.
7 o'clock starts.
Come back to the Central, where we have basically everyone in the right area. Thank goodness. Besides Colorado, but that's a different story for another time.
Yeah,
that's a shorter drive.
Well,
I mean, we also do get Arizona coming up soon too. So I mean, that's a little fun addition.
Yeah. Well, we'll plan on having you back in July, talking about the Stanley Cup champions for 2021, the Minnesota Wild. Past that, Seth, again, man, we really appreciate you coming hanging out with us. You can find Zach on Twitter at CLEZach. You can find me at @Nuddle_CBJ. Find our podcast at Cannon Hawks Pod, the Cannon Tom Hawks Podcast on Twitter. Also on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube as well. Please go subscribe. Past that, Zach, tell our amazing fans what we're all about here at the Kansas Tom Hawks Podcast.
We're all about beer. We're all about food. And so we're also about that hockey.
Thank you for listening to the Cannons and Tomahawks podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. Beer, food, and hockey.